Welcome, everybody. We are back with another episode of the Cowboys Fan versus the World podcast. It's your host with the most, Chris. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I know I am. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff happening. Jesus, it's been quite a hectic week since the last time I saw you guys. So just to let you guys know before we get into the podcast, I believe I will be traveling this upcoming week. So you might see a different setup compared to what it looks like right now. Now, like I said, it's going to look very different. It's probably going to be the same setup. I'm going to take the helmet. I may take the autographed Witten jersey with me. Maybe the cards you see at the bottom. Obviously, may take the Baker Mayfield pop. Gotta show love to that guy. So it's going to look very different this next upcoming episode, especially also with the TikTok videos and YouTube shorts, stuff like that. So it's going to look very different. The background's going to be very different, but it's just to let you guys know I am traveling one more time. It'll probably be the last time I'm going to travel for quite a while. So just letting you guys know so you're not kind of like, what the heck's going on? And we'll kind of just go from there. And I'm very excited. It's not really a far trip. It's not going to be like how I was the last time I was gone for like a whole week. I'm going to take this stuff to record. I might plan something pretty cool. I'm not too sure yet. It's really just going to come down to if I can do the podcast where I'm at or where I plan to do it. That's going to be the biggest question mark. So I'm kind of curious to see how it's going to look and how it's going to work. And I think really it's going to come down to the time of day. But that's all I'm going to spoil right now. So don't think it's like, oh my God, like what's happening? No, just calm down, okay? I'm trying to figure something out and see if we can go from there. But like I said, that's what's coming up. That's outside of the podcast. Just to let you guys know, make sure you guys are following me on all my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm on all of them. Make sure you guys are on my YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Keep up with the podcast. Fight with me. You know, do your thing. You know what I mean? So kind of keep up with it. And also, we will be on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. I did get that problem fixed. I finally figured out what the problem was, and I was able to fix it. So I was able to upload the two recent episodes. So if you haven't given it a listen, head on over to those podcasts, Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Music. It's on all three. They're up and live. They've been up for a while now. I believe for a few days. I was able to get that fixed. Most of you saw the YouTube channel anyways, so I'm not too upset about that or the delay. I'm just happy I was finally able to get it to work. I was really scared it was never going to work. So very happy, very excited that I did get that up and running for you guys. If you are one of the more listeners, if you're able to more listen than watch the YouTube channel, just to let you guys know. But all right, that's enough yapping from me. Now let's talk. We got Cowboys talk going on. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of heated debate really. And maybe you could say I had one person comment saying I'm a jock rider for Dak, but we're going to get into that in a second. But so we're going to start off with CeeDee Lamb, of course, the guy that hasn't been in training camp. Now, that's why I got his jersey on, supported the man. Not upset. I'm glad he's trying to get his money as much as he can. Proved to be one of the best wide receivers in the league. Definitely at least minimum top 10. So kind of what's going on with CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if y'all saw this Twitter beef and war going on between him and Cole Beasley. I mean, Cole Beasley saying he can just come off the couch and get almost 1,000 yards. And CeeDee Lamb's like, dude, just chillax. My reaction to it, I thought that was a pretty funny tweet. I thought it was funny just because it was so random. I guess it was just random and out of the blue for me. I wasn't really expecting that. I just woke up one morning and it was on my Twitter feed. And I think it was all over like Bleacher Report and all that stuff. And I was like, what in the heck is going on? And I think it had something to do with CeeDee Lamb waiting for his contract and Cole Beasley saying, I can get up and go do basically what you do and not need that big of a contract. And CeeDee Lamb's like, dude, chill. And my thing is that I'm sorry, Cole Beasley. Loved you for a very long time. You were very loved in Cowboys Nation. Dropped fire raps. If you guys heard his raps, he's actually pretty good, which I thought that was even funnier. That's why I think that this whole situation is just funny to me. But not really a big deal because I mean Cole Beasley doesn't even play for the Cowboys anyways. I think he's not on a roster at all. So I don't really care because it doesn't really affect anything. But what I found interesting was him saying he can come off the couch and kind of almost replicate what CeeDee Lamb did. And my biggest thing is I don't know about that. And here's why, because I also had this conversation with somebody about CeeDee Lamb. You could definitely tell there's a difference between Cole Beasley and CeeDee Lamb. You can definitely tell there's a difference because one person is I believe a very versatile receiver. Can play outside. He can play the inside. He can take the hit. He can beat the corners deep. He has speed, strength, all of that. And then another receiver that's mainly played in the slot. He was a really big slot receiver, and that's Cole Beasley. So that's there's a difference between a slot receiver and a versatile receiver, if you ask me. But that's why I was like, Cole, I love you, my guy, but I don't know if you could. I don't know. I don't know if I would trust him lining up outside and catching the fade. He's 5 foot. He's 5'8", going up against corners that are like 6 foot. That's kind of why they relied on Dez Bryant to do all that. And Cole Beasley just works the seams and works the out routes and the little. I called him the banana route because it looks like a banana. So he was kind of more in that realm. So like I said, I thought the whole situation was pretty funny because like I said, it was just out of the blue for me. I just didn't expect that till I woke up and saw that, and I thought, like I said, pretty hilarious stuff. So to continue with that whole situation, I guess it's not really a situation, just random beef. I guess that Cole Beasley feels some sort of way about the whole CeeDee Lamb waiting to get paid thing, but I mean, CeeDee Lamb does deserve that money. Let's just be frank. I had this kind of this conversation with somebody, and they were kind of saying like, no, he doesn't deserve the money. He wasn't good in the playoffs and all this stuff, and he's a slot receiver when we can go get someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. or anybody else in the draft that can literally replace him. And I said, no, you can't. Can't replace him. The top argument I heard about that was he's mainly a slot receiver. Even though out of the 385 snaps, 282 of them, I believe, he played outside receiver, which is 73% of his snaps, and he led I think he was third in the league for touchdowns, and he was pretty high up there in passing yards. I think he was second. And he played majority outside because 73% of his snaps were outside. And then I had the whole argument of, well, you get paid for playoffs, but obviously that I thought that was a very fruitless argument because if that's the case, then about 80% of the NFL should not be getting any kind of $1 million contracts. Then they all should really be working on rookie deals because they can't, because a lot of teams don't have any success. And if the argument is playoff success, at least we're getting to the playoffs. That's kind of a way to look at it, at least a positive way to look at it. So I digress. The whole Cole Beasley thing, I thought it was pretty funny more than anything. I don't really see it being a big deal. I mean, really, it's just between them, to be honest. And like I said, Cole Beasley's not even on the team. He's not even in the NFL anymore. That's why he said he can just come off the couch. I don't know if he can just come off the couch and go at it, especially with all these new athletes coming in and the rookies and a lot stronger DBs, I believe, coming in and strong safeties. So that's a little bit of a tough one there, Cole. Love him. I really do. I think he was very good with Dallas. He fit perfectly with Romo. He was a great slot option outside of Dez and Terrence Williams. I thought he was a little bit on par with Terrence Williams. I thought they were pretty equal. Just like I said, Terrence was stronger on the outside. Cole Beasley was stronger on the inside. And then obviously Dez Bryant's just Dez Bryant. So that's kind of where I felt in that whole situation. But I'm sure it's going to get patched up and everyone's going to move on. I think like everybody already dropped it. So like I said, I thought that was more of a funny situation. But Cole Beasley, I don't know if you just come off the couch and just go up and get 1,000 yards. That's a little bit tougher. Especially since I don't know if he's probably been working out, but if he says just come off the couch and go drop almost 1,000, it's a little bit of a tough one. That's a tough one, especially with our schedule coming up. So, like I said, I thought that was pretty funny. Moving on with the CeeDee Lamb situation. So I do have the CeeDee Lamb jersey on today, to show my support and, like I said, just really defend CeeDee Lamb and what I think of like how he plays and why he truly deserves his contract. Like I said, 73% of his snaps he was on the outside. That was one of the bigger arguments prior to last year was he's mainly slot. When Amari Cooper was there, he was played in the slot. Well, yeah, you would put a pretty good weapon in the middle who can beat the linebackers, and he could take a hit in the middle while everyone's paying attention to Amari Cooper. That's just called having weapons on the field, and then everyone's scared of Michael Gallup running by them because he was pretty fast. He was a speedster, so you want to keep him on the outside. CeeDee Lamb was able to work the slot, and Amari was on the outside. Yeah, that's just called having weapons. That's called having a pretty good wide receiving core and putting guys where you think they're going to be strong. So then when the season came up for CeeDee Lamb to take over, everyone was scared. It's like, is he even going to be good because he's mainly slot? He got moved to outside receiver 73% of the time, which is about close to a quarter of his snaps. Pretty close. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm pretty sure 73 is close to 75. And he played outside receiver, and he had top numbers this season, especially after having that conversation with Mike McCarthy about getting the ball more, trusting him more instead of just trying to force multiple options. If he's open, give it to him, or at least give him a chance. And he ran away with it, and he did really well. He was an all-pro, Pro Bowler again. Crazy numbers. Broke Michael Irving's record for the Dallas Cowboys. So you can't say he's not a good wide receiver. And like I said, I showed a graphic of this in my TikTok of having career-wise, he's right on par with Justin Jefferson. I think there was even a Twitter post where Justin Jefferson literally said that CeeDee Lamb's better than him. And I don't know if it's just a support thing or not, but hearing it from who everyone says is the best wide receiver in the NFL from Justin Jefferson, I think that's pretty big, and that's a lot to say coming from Justin Jefferson, who everyone just says CeeDee Lamb's a quote-unquote slot receiver. I think he's versatile because he's able to play both. I think that it's kind of like the same thing with Odell Beckham whenever he was with the Giants. Whenever I want to quote the Carolina Panthers and the Giants game. He was outside with Josh Norman, and it was that ugly game where they were fighting. What did they do? They wanted to get him away. They know he could play slot. They threw him in the slot, and he was killing the Panthers. He was able to beat the linebackers. He was able to beat the safeties. He just got him away from Josh Norman. That's just called being a versatile receiver. If he was just slot, they would have never thrown him outside. That's just simple as that. I mean, that's kind of just logic. If he can't play outside, throw him in slot. And if he plays better in slot but not as good in the outside, where are you going to put him? In the slot. And that's what happened when CeeDee Lamb came, when Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup were there. Amari Cooper was already a set outside receiver. Gallup was a speed demon. What was open? The seam. Because now defenses had to respect all three of them. Now you take away Amari out of the equation. CeeDee Lamb has to take over as the number one. Had a great season. Despite, the failure in the playoffs. But my argument is that he had bad games. I think really San Francisco was the worst because he did have a lot of drops. But I also know Dak was trying to force the ball to him a lot in that San Francisco game. And then Green Bay was just an ugly game for everybody. So you can't really blame it on him because he's not the one throwing the ball to himself. So it really depends on how the offense works kind of deal, in my opinion. So now if he had like 20 drop balls, then I think you may have an argument. But I don't think he did. I mean, he just didn't get the ball altogether. And like I said, the 49ers game, I mean, that was just an ugly game altogether. But as I stated, he's proven that he can be a versatile receiver, which he is. That was one of the arguments that the draft analysts had for him in 2020 when he was coming in, when we drafted him, was he was going to help out a lot in the slot. I believe he mainly played outside receiver at Oklahoma too. And he did really well at outside. They just threw him in the slot because he can run slot really well too. So it was called drafting a versatile receiver that you could put anywhere on the field. And I believe another argument was, well, he can't, or the other argument, part of it was, well, he can't open up the field. He was literally getting double teamed the majority of the time. How does that not open up the field? Like, how does that make any sense? How do you not open up the field if you're getting double teamed? Literally, defenses worried about CeeDee Lamb more than Tony Pollard last year. Think about it like that. They were more worried about CeeDee Lamb killing them than Tony Pollard. And everyone was scared of Tony Pollard because of the explosiveness he had over Ezekiel Elliott. And everybody thought, oh, well, Pollard's time to shine, and he's gonna carry Dallas, so the workload's off of Dak and CeeDee. That's not what happened. CeeDee Lamb had to help carry that offense. That offense would have not worked without CeeDee Lamb. Let's be real here. It wasn't going to work without CeeDee Lamb. And he's proven it. He's proven that he can be that top receiver that the Cowboys need, that Dak needs to help him move that offense. Because if you take him away, like what happened before Amari Cooper came in, when Des Bryant got cut, we were horrible because you can't go run an offense without a top wide receiver. It's just not going to be possible unless you are Patrick Mahomes. He's probably the only exception that you could possibly have. Maybe Tom Brady too, but that's my point, is that CeeDee Lamb has proven it. He's shown it in his stats. He's shown since he's gotten in the league, he can be a top receiver, and he just proved it this year when everybody questioned if he's going to be that guy for the Dallas Cowboys at wide receiver. He proved it. He straight up proved it in that season. And like I said, I heard the whole, well, no success in the playoffs. Well, If he's not getting the ball, yeah, he's not going to have good stats. If he gets thrown to 3 times and catches the ball twice, yeah, is that really a fair comparison? Like, no, it's not. He caught the ball 2 out of the 3. He probably got defended. The ball never came to him. There's nothing he could do about that. If he's double teamed, yeah. If you're a double teamed receiver, what are you going to do? Try to moss 2 different people? No, that's going to be very hard. Unless you have a really dead-eye quarterback that can hit it right there, which is still a very tough throw to have if you are a QB, no matter who you are. And that's just playing the game. So, to continue with this, what does it mean for the contract? I mean, we already saw Justin Jefferson get his money, the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. And he got his money pretty good. Now, the Vikings are in a different situation. Obviously, different situation than the Dallas Cowboys because they just don't have a quarterback that they need to pay because they let Kirk Cousins leave, which is pretty smart because they can afford to keep Justin Jefferson. But he still showed that, especially now, the landscape of the NFL's offense is moving towards more pass heavy, especially with all these big cannon quarterbacks and these very, very fast receivers. That the run game is essential, yes, but you can win a game without running the ball 30 times. You can. Like, there are teams that have literally done it without a running back and gotten pretty far. Patrick Mahomes was another good example. I know I'm saying Patrick Mahomes a lot, but he's just great altogether. So let's kind of keep that in mind. Now, in Dallas' situation, they needed the run and a top receiver to help move that offense, which is nothing wrong with that. There are teams that have that situation too. I don't know about you, but Miami is the first one that comes to mind with Tua Tagovailoa. He needed Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and they're half an army of running backs they got back there waiting to run the ball. So it's a thing. You can do that. The Giants were another one. They just didn't have the top receiver, but they had the top running back, which we're going to talk about the Giants a little bit later. So, and that's my deal, is that when you look at all that, you look at Justin Jefferson, and the closest one to Justin Jefferson's stats is CeeDee Lamb. They both came in the same year, drafted in 2020, when the Eagles stupidly did not choose him and went with Jalen Reagor. I tell that to Philly fans all the time. They're like, well, we made a Super Bowl. I just tell them, yeah, I bet you would have won if you would have drafted Justin Jefferson and not Jalen Reagor. But hindsight's 2020. If they got Justin, they would have never got A.J. Brown. So I guess hindsight's 2020 there. But I still crack up because I just tell people. I tell Eagles fans that all the time. If they would have just drafted Justin Jefferson, they probably would have won the Super Bowl. So, but anyways, the receiver closest to his stats is CeeDee Lamb. He's not very far off of Justin Jefferson, and we've labeled Justin Jefferson, if not the best, top 3 receivers in the league. And I admit that. He's a very good receiver. I'm not taking that away from Justin Jefferson, and I'm not going to sit here and say that CeeDee Lamb's better. I think they're both pretty close to each other. I think that maybe Justin Jefferson, because he has more yards, he got the ball thrown to him more. He was the number 1 option for the Minnesota Vikings for that length of time. CeeDee Lamb was behind Amari Cooper for the first couple years he was there. It was, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Gallup. Really, Justin Jefferson was the only top receiver that the Vikings had, so they had to throw him the ball a lot. So that explains why he has more kind of better stats, more touchdowns, and more yards. But CeeDee Lamb is right on his tail. He's not very far. So from those 2 receivers from that 2020 draft class and being that close to each other, should say that probably CeeDee Lamb deserves to be pretty well paid, especially since he's kind of the main reason our offense worked last year. Brandon Cooks, yes, I believe Brandon Cooks was essential, but it took Dak a very long time to finally utilize Brandon Cooks, and I think it took a while for McCarthy to finally utilize Brandon Cooks. It just took too long. I think that whole situation took too long, but still, CeeDee Lamb helped open up the field because it got Brandon Cooks open, it got Tolbert open, it got Ferguson open. That's why Ferguson had such a monster year. Like, how does he not move the ball? How is he not proven to be a good wide receiver in the league? If not top 5, top 10. For sure, you got to throw him in the top 10 receivers in the NFL right now. He's definitely one of the best in the division. He's one of the best in the NFC altogether. So let's call it how it is. He's a good wide receiver. He deserves to get paid something. He deserves to get a contract. Now, we will see what happens, and if he just ends up taking the franchise tag, and fingers crossed he just ends up getting more money the next year. I don't know if he's really going to do that. that's going to be the biggest question mark of them all to me, is if he's going to take that kind of just that little pay cut just so he can have a contract. So that way he's going to get paid. You know what I mean? And that way he can also make up for all the money he missed out on for missing all those camps and all that good stuff. So hopefully that gets worked out with CeeDee Lamb. I will say, though, this was pretty big. I thought this was pretty cool of him. And I thought this was pretty big and very mature, mind you. I thought this was very mature. CeeDee Lamb, he was asked at his football, I think it was leading up to his youth football camp that he was going to run and do. And a reporter asked him, like, CeeDee Lamb's going to answer questions about the holdout. What's the status of the contract? And he said, no, I'm not answering any questions about my contract. It's about the kids. And I think that was a pretty grown-up answer because it's fair. I mean, he's not there to answer media questions. He's not there to tell the NFL world, oh, hey, I'm getting my contract. Oh, hey, I'm not getting my contract. Oh, hey, I want to trade. He's literally there for the kids, giving them a good time without having the media harp them, take away from that experience for those kids that probably, their parents or whoever they're with paid a lot of money to go to his camp, get to meet CeeDee Lamb, get to talk with them, probably get a picture. I don't know. I don't know the whole details of the whole camp thing. I just assume that's what it is. You get a t-shirt, probably a photo with him. I don't really know how that works, but I know CeeDee Lamb's going to be at the camp. I know because Micah Parsons was here not super long ago with his camp. So I think that was pretty adult of him. That's a pretty adult move, in my opinion. Like, that's just being an adult. Like, no, I'm not talking about it when I have to run a camp for kids. I'm literally here for kids, not to answer stupid questions about something that has nothing to do with the camp and why he's actually there. Like I said, he's just there for the kids. I think that's very adult. It's very grown up, and I think that's the right answer, to be honest. Because there's people out there that'll, once a camera's in and they're mad and they're like, stuff just comes out flying. The first opportunity they get, and I think that saying, I'm not going to talk about anything. I'm not going to answer any questions about my contract, about anything team related if it's not about the camp, and that's just being an adult. That's just kind of telling the media, like, hey, I'm not talking about this right now. This has nothing to do with what I'm doing here. It's for kids. It's for a good reason, why I'm here. It's good because it doesn't take away and it doesn't overshadow the whole reason why they're doing the camp, to help kids, better their craft at in football, in whatever sport, honestly. They end up getting the once-in-a-lifetime chance to meet CeeDee Lamb, to, get a picture with him, talk with him. And I think that's pretty cool, a pretty cool experience if you do end up going to the camp. So I'm sure he's like, I want to enjoy the time with the kids that I agreed to come work with. So, like I said, pretty adult of him. Alrighty, moving on from CeeDee Lamb. He needs his money right now. By the way, he still isn't in the building. Cowboys, he's not in the building. He's in the lab, but not in the building. Come on. Training camp is around the corner. We just need him in the building. He's not in the building. He's not in the building. In the lab, but not in the building. He needs to be in the building. God, get his contract first. He's not in the building. Ugh. All right. Next up, talking about another player that's hoping to maybe get another contract. Dak Prescott. Dakota Prescott. Now, I said earlier in the podcast that I have been commented to be a number 4 jock rider. Now, you see right here, I got his football card right there. Got a Mississippi State jersey. I got some Dak jerseys. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't like Dak, because that's not true. I was a big fan of him when we drafted him. When we drafted him in 2016, I was actually watching the NFL draft. I just so happened to turn it on because it was the Cowboys pick. Round 4, 136, and he said Dak Prescott. And I actually told my stepfather this. I said, wow, that's actually a pretty big pick. And he said, why? I was like, he was the main reason why Mississippi State, or he was the reason why Mississippi State was number 1. They beat Alabama. He was one of the top quarterbacks in the NCAA. But he got arrested or something like that. So his stock just dropped because he had off the field issues, and guess what? Out of all those people that got drafted, guess who's still there? Well, Jared Goff's still there. I think he was the number 1 pick that year in 2016, but him and Dak Prescott are the only 2 quarterbacks left standing from that whole draft class. Is just them 2. So where am I going with this? Now, Here's the deal. I've said this before. Do I think Dak should get a contract? Yes, I absolutely believe. Do I think he should be the top paid quarterback in the league? That one, I said, is a little bit of a negative. I think he should get a deal. Bring him back. And here's why. And I keep hearing this. This is the same conversation I had. Is playoff success. You don't get paid for the regular season. You get paid for your work in the playoffs. Last time I checked, Baltimore doesn't work on that logic. Last time I checked, the Chargers don't work on that logic. Last time I checked, the Giants didn't work on that logic. There's a lot of teams that don't work with that logic. And that's why I honestly hate the whole playoff argument. Oh, he's not good in the playoffs. Justin Herbert's one of the top paid quarterbacks in the league, and he literally blew a 28-0 lead in the playoffs. And I swear to God, if somebody says Brandon Staley again to me, because I had this argument with my buddy, he said Brandon Staley's not a good coach. They were up 28-0. If you just score a touchdown, they would. If they would have scored one more touchdown, they literally would have won the game. That's the dumber part of the whole situation. But I digress here. We're talking about Dak. But I just don't like that argument, because if that's the case, then there's quarterbacks that definitely don't need to be getting their money, and there's quarterbacks that should be getting more money because they've won games in the playoffs. Like, another example, Lamar Jackson has not won very much in the playoffs, but yet everyone says he's a 2-time MVP. Well, I thought you don't get paid for the regular season. I thought that was the whole thing. It's just like the argument of that, and I hate the hypocrisy of it. Because the only one, really, you can make any kind of logical, like, it just makes 100% sense, is Patrick Mahomes. Because he's literally gone to he's won 3 Super Bowls, he's gone to 4 or 5 or whatever, or he's been to 5 AFC championships, he's been to 4 Super Bowls, won 3 of them. So that makes sense. You know, he makes a lot of sense. You know, he should get paid a lot. Tom Brady was another one that he could have gotten paid a lot if we're using the argument of playoff success. And another person that only had regular season success up until he won a Super Bowl was Peyton Manning, but he's still considered one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Aaron Rodgers hasn't done much in the playoffs after his Super Bowl win, and he won a Super Bowl 14 years ago? Going on 15, and he hasn't done much since. But he gets paid money because he was a back-to-back MVP. But I thought that you don't get paid for the playoffs. Justin Herbert hasn't done jack diddly squat since he's gotten here. Gone to the playoffs once. And the argument I hear is, well, he's in the conference with the Chiefs. There's still the wild card. You can make the wild card. And then Brandon Staley's a bad coach. You can only use that argument for so long. You know what I'm saying? Trevor Lawrence just got the bag. The only other person I could think of that actually, like, you could make a kind of a legitimate argument is Joe Burrow, because he got to the Super Bowl. Because if that's the case, like I said, playoff success, Matthew Stafford deserves a lot more money, because he was, first of all, in Detroit purgatory for so long, so he just needs compensation for all that kind of stuff. I quote Shannon Sharp on this: he deserves his restitution. The Detroit Lions humiliated him every Sunday on national television. So Matthew Stafford deserves money because he won a Super Bowl. So that's my point, is that I think the whole playoff argument is stupid. I hate when people use, well, he doesn't win in the playoffs. There's a lot of quarterbacks that get paid a lot of money that don't win in the playoffs. Kyler Murray is another good example. He has not done anything besides he won a Rookie of the Year title. After that, he has not been healthy. He has not been able to stay on the field. He got a contract that literally said he has to watch film. Well, he got a lot of money. And he got killed in the playoffs. He got a lot of money. So that's my point. Daniel Jones got a giant contract. What has he done? That's my point. Is that you can't use the playoff argument so much. There is a lot of quarterbacks that have played. There's a lot of players that have played that haven't done well in the playoffs. But they still got their money because they know that's the franchise guy. Because they know that they give them the best chance to make it in the playoffs. That's the only freaking reason Aaron Rodgers is still around, is because he gives the Jets, quote unquote, a good chance. Deshaun Watson is the only reason why the Cleveland Browns are just stupid, because they're stuck with him. But, that's why Cleveland went to go get him. That's why the Buccaneers gave Baker Mayfield a 3-year extension, because he got him in the playoffs. Which, by the way, he has more playoff wins than Lamar Jackson. Anyways, so that's my point. That's why I think the whole playoff argument is dumb. I think you can say his performance in the playoffs hurts him. I think that's a little bit more of a legitimate argument, in my opinion. Is that, well, how he plays in the playoffs doesn't replicate how he plays in the season. And I get that. I completely understand that. That's like, yeah, I don't know what happens. I don't know. He just becomes Joel Embiid and just can't play in the playoffs. I don't know what happens. You know what I mean? I can't explain it either. But what I can explain is that, and the point I'm getting at here, is Dak Prescott literally gives us the best chance. This is why I want him to stay. Because I looked up the quarterbacks that are coming into the draft next year. Potential prospects. Carson Beck from Georgia. Quentin Ewers, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Those are the 5 off the top of my head that are potential QBs coming in. Now, let's look at them. Let's look at this realistically. With Dak Prescott coming in, Dak Prescott averages about 13 wins a season. About 13, 12. So if we go 12 wins again, say for the sake of argument we go 12 wins, right? 12 and 5. Where does that land us? In the freaking back of the draft. So, what quarterback is going to be available in the back of the draft? When I know there's a couple of teams that are going to probably need a QB. First one that comes to mind is probably going to be the Raiders, because they are probably going to need a quarterback unless their new head coach just turns it around. So that's one. The Giants are going to look for a new quarterback if they don't decide to go for Dak Prescott. If Miami decides to move away from Tua after this season, that's another team that's probably going to need a quarterback. So that's already 3 teams off the top of my head that are going to go get a quarterback. If the Steelers don't work out at all with either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, I can see them trying to maybe go push to get a QB. So there's teams that need a QB. It's not super essential. I think this upcoming draft is not going to be very quarterback-like. I think it's going to be more of the other skill positions. I think it should be heavier receivers or cornerbacks. But the QB draft class is not going to be strong this year. So let's look at it realistically on who we move on from Dak. Let's say, for the sake of argument, forget it. You don't do good in the playoffs, but yeah, we got in the playoffs. But other than that, we move on. We say, thank you, Dak. Thank you for your services. Adios. Goodbye. We go into the draft. We're number 24. Okay, we're number 24. Who should we go get? Oh, Shedeur looks good. He's going probably going to go top 10. Okay. He might be gone. What about Quentin Ewers? Possibly, until somebody trades up to get him. Okay, he might be gone. What about Jalen Milroe? The guy that didn't do so well at Alabama. Yeah, what about Carson Beck? He's projected to, I think, be the number 1 pick, or not the number 1 pick, but the number 1 receiver quarterback to get picked. Okay, cool. But if he's the number 1 prospect for QBs, don't you think maybe, I don't know, the Raiders are going to go get him? Don't you think there's any other team that might need a QB might go get him? If Matthew Stafford decides to retire after this season, don't you think the Rams are going to try to go get him? If the Seattle Seahawks don't want Geno Smith anymore, do you think they're just not going to try to go get him? Do you think that the Giants are not going to go get him and rely on Drew Lock? Miami, if they decide to move on from Tua? If the Saints give up on Derek Carr? So there's a few teams that are probably going to be ahead of us in the draft. So basically all the good QBs are gone. Aside of, I think Quentin Ewers is going to be like one of the last ones. So, okay, we'll get Quentin Ewers. And what happens if he doesn't work out? What happens if now we are in QB purgatory? Dun, dun, dun. See, and that's my point, is now, okay, forget the draft, right? Let's go to free agency. Even though we don't get anybody in free agency, let's see who we can do. We can try Trey Lance. Okay, we could try Trey Lance, other than the fact that he's injury prone. He's gotten hurt every time. So, okay, well, let's try to go find somebody. Or actually, his contract's up after this year, too. We don't resign him, and somebody else says, oh, we'll give Trey Lance a shot. We basically had 2 years to heal. We'll give it a shot. Okay, Trey Lance is gone. All right, let's just go find anybody else that's going to be available. There's not a lot of quarterbacks available in free agency this year. That's the sad reality. Is okay. There's not many quarterbacks that are going to be available. At least any good ones. I think Russell Wilson might be available because I think he's on a 1 year or a 2 year, something like that. Justin Fields, who knows what's gonna happen with him. So we have to try to find a QB in free agency or trade for, which we don't like trading draft picks. Jerry loves his draft picks. He will hold on to them suckers till he dies. So, yeah, that's what I mean by. And I said this in the podcast episode. I think not this one, but the one before that when I first came back. Is that we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. We're damned if we do because we have Dak again. We have a potential chance to make the playoffs. Keep in mind this. Out of the 8 years Dak has been in the league, he only hasn't been to the playoffs about two or three times. He hasn't been in the playoffs. So he's been in the playoffs every other year. He's been in the playoffs. If you take away his, I believe you take away the 2020 year that he was out with that horrifying ankle injury, he's only missed the playoffs twice. So he gives us a good chance to make it, wild card or not. It's the playoffs. It's farther than most other teams that we go up against. And that's my thing, is that he gives us a chance to get into the playoffs. If that makes me a Dak Prescott jock rider, then okay. But it just makes sense to me because he gives us a good chance to make the playoffs. Whether we choke or not, I mean, I'm not happy if we choke. Don't get me wrong. I'm frustrated. He should have saw me in that playoff game when we got our butts kicked. He played horrible. But also the defense was even worse because they couldn't stop the run. How many times did we see that when Dak was there? I don't know. The LA Rams game. So my point is that I don't know, and it's not certain. It's the same thing with the guy that commented the CeeDee Lamb thing and go get a pro-ready receiver. We don't know let's be honest, we are not sure. On paper, these prospects should be NFL ready, but we're never sure. We don't know. In another universe, Peyton Manning was a bust. In another universe, Tom Brady was the number 1 pick and was a bust. In another universe, Jamar Russell ends up becoming one of the best QBs to ever play the game. In another universe, Johnny Manziel doesn't lose his mind. And that's my point. We're not sure. We're not certain. It's very up in the air on what's going to happen and what we can do. And it's up in the air. We're hoping. We're hoping Trey Lance is going to be good to replace Dak Prescott. And he might. There's also the scenario he ends up replacing Dak and we're either back where we started, making playoffs but losing, or we're not making playoffs. Either way, we're still stuck in the problem. We don't have a quarterback that's either going to get us the same result as Dak, so we should have just kept Dak, or we're going to be in QB purgatory because we're not sure. Now, I'm not hoping for the worst on my team. God, no. No, I'm not hoping for the worst at all. I don't want to be in QB purgatory. I've seen other teams go through that. That sounds horrible. I know the Bills went through that for years. That was horrible. The Browns went through it their whole lives. That was horrible. Like I've seen it. It's not fun. It doesn't look fun. I personally don't want to be on the other end of QB purgatory. I mean, the Texans were that after Deshaun Watson left. They were in QB purgatory until C.J. Stroud arrived. The Panthers, I think, were another one until Bryce Young, which we're hoping Bryce Young does good. And the Jets, oh God. I mean, just the poor Jets, man. The Titans, I think, are another one, except for Ryan Tannehill when he was there. He had a couple decent years. And the list goes on. I think Miami for a little bit was kind of in QB purgatory till Tua came in. There's many examples of this. And it's not fun. And that's my fear as a Dallas Cowboys fan, is we get put in QB purgatory. On paper, the draft prospects should be good. But like I said, not a guarantee those guys are going to drop unless we trade up. And I highly doubt we're going to trade up because Jerry doesn't have a history of that. He doesn't. Let's just be real. He's not. He doesn't have that history. So we're not going to get Shadur hard unless we just tank the season, which I don't think we're going to do because Dak is going to be good enough to get us or give us a chance to get into the playoffs. So we won't have a low pick, but we're not going to win. We're possibly not going to win the Super Bowl, so we're not going to get the last pick. So we're going to be between 20 and 30. It's going to be where we're at. The last time we had a high draft pick, super high one, was Zeke. The next one was 16 for or 2021 draft class after CeeDee Lamb. The draft class after CeeDee Lamb. Because the year before that, I think we were like not 9-7. We were kind of low on that one too, but we weren't like top 10 pick. We weren't. We're usually about 15 to 24. That's where we sit. So we're middle of the pack to a little bit better than the middle of the pack. So not realistic, we're going to get Shadur. Not realistic, we're going to get Carson Beck. Not even realistic, we're going to get Quinn Ewers, which I think are the three most NFL-ready QBs that are coming in my opinion. I don't know if Jalen Milroe is going to be good to come in. I don't know if Dylan Gabriel is going to be good enough to come in, because I saw those OU games, and there were sometimes I was like, dude, what is this guy doing? And now he's at Oregon. Hopefully he has a pretty good successful career up there. And that's my point. We don't know. And then we talk about free agents. We don't know if they're going to be good coming in. We have no idea. We have no idea if Trey Lance is going to be good either. He was only there for 6 games in San Francisco, and look how that worked out. And that's my point. We're not sure. What we are sure is this: on paper, Dak could get us into the playoffs. And I think that's what we need to understand, is that he gives us a chance. Whether he succeeds or not is kind of something that is a little bit redundant, as a redundant point, because it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, there's so many QBs that gotten paid a lot of money. Even LaShawn McCoy admitted this on an episode of Speak Today. He said, like, everyone thinks I hate Dak. No, I just tell the truth. He said, and he even admitted, he gave him praise. He said he's been in the playoffs. He got there. He's won division titles. He gives the Cowboys the best chance to get into the playoffs. Now, is he successful? No. That's why he's like, maybe he should walk and go somewhere else to see who's the problem, if it's him or if it's the Cowboys. So even guys like him that, not really hate on Dak Prescott, he just calls it how he sees it, which is he's entitled to his opinion, whether you agree or not, but he's not wrong, He gives us a good chance to make it into the playoffs, so why would we let that walk out the door? If he gives us a decent chance to come in, and he's barely 30, he's barely hitting his 30s. So he gives us a good chance to make the playoffs, and he gives us a good chance to at least win the division. Compared to drafting a rookie if we're not sure he's going to be even good, or getting a free agent, or letting Trey Lance take over, and we're not even sure if he's going to be healthy enough to stay or he's going to even succeed. Everything's up in the air. But on paper, Dak has shown that he can get us into the playoffs. Even on his bad year, he still got into the playoffs. Keep in mind that prior to this MVP season, the season prior, oh my God, I remember his horrible turnover season. And how many people were saying, get rid of Dak, and we still won. We still not won the division, but we still got into the playoffs. We took down Tom Brady, and I heard that argument, the last time they won was they took down a horrible Bucs team. Win's a win, dude. Horrible team or not, they still won the division. So, and he still got in. He still got into the wild card. He snuck in. So, obviously, he's good enough to gives us a fighting chance to get into the playoffs, and he's not bad enough to get us out. You know what I mean? Like I said, only 2 to 3 times he's not been. If you don't count his injury season, he's only missed the playoffs twice in his 8 years. 3 if you count the injured year. So I think out of 8 seasons and only missing the playoffs twice to 3 times, so 5 out of 8 or 6 out of 8. I mean, that's pretty consistently getting into the playoffs. So he's good enough to be consistent to get you there. Like I said, his bad season still made the wild card, even on his worst season. With all the turnovers he had, and everybody was calling for him to get out. Everybody was saying that we need to trade him, we need to cut him, we should have not paid him all this money. Still made the playoffs. And then everybody was saying this year, he's going to get cut after this year. He's gone. Had a almost MVP season. MVP caliber season. So, and that's what I mean. He gives us a chance to make it into the playoffs. And I think that's what we need to respect and understand. He gives us a chance. And that's how I see it. Whether you think I'm a jock writer or not, it's just facts. He's gotten the playoffs. He's shown he can get consistently into the playoffs. He's only missed it a couple times to get in. And one of them is because he had a broken ankle. So, and that was with the worst defense we've ever had. And a horrible year. God, the 2020 season was just all kinds of weird. But I digress. So, Dak Prescott, do I think he should be the highest paid? I think that one, you could bring in the playoff thing and determine his money. But should he get a contract extension? Well, by his work over 8 years, getting us into the playoffs, yes, I think he should because he did his job. He got us into the playoffs. There were times in the playoffs he wasn't good, and there were also times where the defense wasn't good either. Let's just keep it a stack. And so he gives us a good chance. He gets us in the playoffs. If Lamar Jackson didn't have a good end of the year, Dak was the front runner for the majority of the time. He was in the front for the MVP, and he won multiple NFC East titles. And he's been in the wild card. So you can't really ask for more. And he got the Cowboys to be the second in the NFC because the Eagles fumbled the bag really bad. His first rookie year, he got the Cowboys to be first in the NFC. Like I said, the winning in the playoffs, that I believe is you can make the argument if on the majority of the payment. I think that you can make the argument of, well, we're not winning in the playoffs, so I can't give you top quarterback money because you're not winning in the playoffs. We're getting there, so I think I should keep you a little longer because you're the best chance we got. But so I think the playoff thing is the argument for the amount of money he should get. I think you can make the fair argument in that, but then again, like I said, how many quarterbacks are top paid, and only a couple of them have made the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl? Because I think the 3 off the top of my head in the top 10 paid that have made the Super Bowl, win or lose, it was Patrick, obviously, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow. 3 out of the 7 that I can think of off the top of my head, unless Matthew Stafford's on there, but I don't think he is. So everyone else is no one else has made the Super Bowl on that list, unless Matthew Stafford's on there. I don't know if he's on there off the top of my head, but I know for sure Joe Burrow's on there, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts are on there, and they are the only ones that have been to a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes just won it. So let's keep that in mind here. Alrighty, so moving on from the Dak situation and Cowboys talk, now we're going to move on over to around the NFL, where we look at the NFL through the eyes of a Dallas Cowboys fan. So let's get into these topics. We're going to go to the rivals, the NFC East rivals, them Giants, the little Giants. God, are they horrible. Jesus Christ. So if any of you don't know, the New York Giants got selected for School of Hard Knocks. I remember it was called that, but now it's called Hard Knocks off season, because they do two. They do one off season and in season. I think the in season one's kind of weird, but whatever. I like the preseason one just because it's pretty cool to see that whole process of how trades work and deals and what they kind of do. And what confused me is that they're actually buying in on Daniel Jones. They literally said, this is Daniel's year. And at first I thought, this is Daniel's final year. We forgot the final part, right? We're done with this guy. We wasted our money. And they're like, this is Daniel's year. I think they're actually confident in Daniel Jones getting better this year. So I thought I was delusional. I thought we were the most delusional people we've ever met. I think the Giants are more delusional than the Cowboys right now. Because what has Daniel Jones realistically done? Really, really think about that. What has he realistically done? And he had one mid-year where he had 700 rushing yards. He had, compared to 5 interceptions and 22 or 27 total touchdowns. So he didn't even have 22 passing or 27 or whatever it was. It was total. It literally counts the rushing touchdowns. So it showed me that Daniel Jones can run the ball. I'm like, good, the guy has speed. Doesn't have anything else, but he has speed. And that's why I'm really confused on why they're so bought in. I don't know if they're watching the same thing I'm watching. I don't know if they're thinking, yep, that's what I want. That's what I want. A QB that throws picks and can't beat the defense. Yep, but he can run like crazy. He can run like the wind. That's my thing. I've seen enough of Daniel Jones. I honestly didn't think he deserved the extension. I was on here on the podcast raving that Saquon Barkley should have gotten that contract. And they screwed over Saquon. Now he's in Philadelphia. So the Giants screwed all of us. Freaking Giants. And they're so bought in on Daniel Jones. And I've heard the argument of he never had any weapons. He had Saquon Barkley. He had Darren Waller last year. Yeah. So he had somebody there. Darren Waller got hurt. Saquon could only do so much because of the Giants being the Giants at this point. And they got Malik Neighbors, so hopefully he can help out. But like, my thing is that he didn't deserve the contract. Like, he just didn't. I didn't think he deserved it at all because I thought Saquon Barkley was the main guy in that team because I thought he was only good because Saquon made him good. Because nobody was scared of Daniel Jones. Literally, everybody planned to go against Saquon, to stop Saquon. Because once you stop Saquon Barkley, the Giants were really dead in the water at that point because Daniel Jones could barely move that offense besides him running. And he showed flashes of that. I know he has a playoff win. Technically, he has a playoff win against the Vikings. But I'm also like, cool. Then he got his butt kicked against the Eagles. And then he has been getting his butt kicked ever since. So he hasn't had like an MVP season. I remember that season everybody raved. Oh my God, Daniel Jones is going to be the second best NFL quarterback because he did so good this past year. Yeah, no, he didn't because those were pretty mid numbers. So his best year is literally somebody's awful year. That is horrible to think. That is honestly the scariest thing I've ever heard of. Is his best year is somebody's mediocre year. That is so terrifying to know that. You know, granted the interceptions were down. I'll give him that. He didn't turn the ball over as much, but he also had Saquon Barkley helping out with that. And he just hasn't shown me he deserves that contract. Just every time I see him play, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't fear him. You know what I mean? Like, he's like one of those QBs I just don't really fear. I'm like, okay, try to beat us throwing the ball. I've seen you do it 4 years in a row, aside of last year, because he got hurt. Let's add that into the factor. He got hurt. And you weren't very successful majority of the time, except against the Eagles, which I still found pretty funny. So what do you offer? You know? And I thought that's what the Giants were going to ask themselves this year. Like, what does Daniel Jones literally offer? Like, are we actually I thought Brian Dable was going to say, dude, are we really considering bringing Daniel back? Because let's be honest, we let the wrong offensive guy walk out that door, and we let Saquon go to the freaking Eagles. Like, let's be real here. And like I said, that's my biggest thing. Is like, why? Why would they let him walk? Why would you pay a quarterback that's not good? You know what I mean? Like, he is not good at all. There's a bunch of other quarterbacks I would pick over him. I know one was definitely Trevor Lawrence. You know, even though he hasn't had the best year, but I mean, he had Urban Meyer as a coach, which that was a disaster. But he ran 1 year under Doug Peterson. He did pretty good. Had a 28-point comeback win in the playoffs. I think he just hasn't hit his peak yet. I would take Tua Tagovailoa over Daniel Jones, even though he was almost out of the league due to injuries. I would still take Tua. I'd take Justin Herbert. I mean, that's kind of a given. Take Justin Herbert over him. Shoot, man. I'll take Derek Carr right now over Daniel Jones. I'd take Caleb Williams right now over Daniel Jones. Like, there's a lot of QBs you would take over Daniel Jones right now. Like, if you said, hey, I will come here for dirt cheap. If you get rid of him, I will come to New York. I bet you any money the Giants... Well, a logical person would say, yeah, sorry, Daniel. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. We love you, but you can't stay here. This guy's coming for the cheap. But apparently to them, they would actually sit there and debate it. And he doesn't offer the same thing like the Dak Prescott argument that I had. Is he doesn't give you a good chance to make the playoffs. Like I said, his best year was like somebody's mediocre year. That is terrifying to know that. And he hasn't had very consistent play. So why is he still with the Giants starting? Why did he get a giant contract over Saquon freaking Barkley, who was one of the best running backs in the league, and they let him walk out the door? And that's my point. And if you want to say, like, well, he doesn't have any weapons, thing that Daniel Jones has done this entire tenure with the New York Giants, it just doesn't add up to a giant contract. It doesn't add up to an extension. It doesn't add up to letting Saquon Barkley walk out the freaking door. So what has he done? Like, let's ask ourselves a question. What has he done? He hasn't made his team better. He hasn't played at a high level, like a high draft pick like he should be. And he got picked over Saquon Barkley, and I think the Giants are going to ultimately regret that for years to come, because there's no way they should have picked Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley. So that was my biggest problem. Alrighty, moving on. So like I said, we brought up a new thing for the podcast last week. It's called 3 Things I'm Willing to See. Now, thank you to Javon from Stats Over Feelings. Check him out. Check out his TikTok. I think he's very insightful, very smart guy. Make sure you check him out. Thank you for the idea, by the way. I want to give all the credit to him. I didn't come up with this. Credit to him. So now we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Baker Mayfields. Yeah. Yeah, boy. All right, so three things I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing from the Buccaneers. So first up is Baker Mayfield. Obviously, I'm looking to see how much he improves. I think he had a great year. He should have won Comeback Player of the Year because he literally was about to get kicked out of the league and came back and on a 1 year deal, mind you. He was on a 1 year contract and took his team to the playoffs. Granted, I said the NFC South was the weakest division in the NFC, so I figured he would win because the Atlanta Falcons were stuck with Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith. The Saints were going to be the only competition, which they were, and the Panthers had a rookie quarterback, which we weren't sure if he was going to be living up to the hype of the number one pick in Bryce Young, and they didn't have weapons around him, so they didn't have anybody to help him. Like, he was literally the definition of he had no help, and so it was a division for him to win, and that's what ultimately happened. Now, I'm curious to see how much he's going to improve. Just because they brought in a new OC. He came from the Rams. He worked with the Rams. And I know Baker Mayfield mentioned he liked working with Sean McVay in that offense. So I'm very interested to see if he's going to take another step forward in his progression to resurging his career. And hopefully he'll be the long-term answer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said, not everyone thought he was going to be that good last year. Not everyone thought that he was going to get an extension. Everybody thought, well, they're tanking for Caleb. They're going to go get Caleb Williams because they put in Baker Mayfield. Kyle Trask is next, and I told you, they can't fail with the weapons they have. Like, bare minimum, they should make the wild card or possibly make the wild card. And I said they were going to win the division. They won the division, and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, who were fraudulently good last year. So I just love bashing on the Eagles. And you guys saw it, that Baker Mayfield had glimpses of being good. He had some of the best numbers he's had in his entire career. And he won a playoff game, and he almost took down the Lions too. So let's keep that in mind. So with all that being said, you can kind of tell that he likes it in Tampa, and Tampa really loves him. So I'm very curious to see if he is going to continue to grow, if he's going to continue to work on his game, and kind of help accelerate the Buccaneers back to star form. And like I said, and another interesting point was that it's a lot of shoes to fill replacing Tom Brady, who came in and won a Super Bowl with Tampa. So he came in and, I mean, he got into the playoffs and he won. He won a playoff game. He won the wild card. So I have hope for him. I've always had hope for Baker. I think the Buccaneers is a good situation for him. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he's going to continue that growth with the Buccaneers. The next step is the offensive line. I said it before on this podcast, and I've said it again. I believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their offensive line was the weakest link out of that whole team. I believe the offensive line was the weakest. They had injuries on injuries. They drafted that Duke kid that's coming in who played multiple spots on the line. He was one of the top prospects for the draft this year at O-line. So I'm very excited to see him, and they kind of try to fix up that offensive line to protect Baker Mayfield and to help Rachaad White at least, be able to hit those pockets more and not have it all collapse or Baker Mayfield get sacked a lot. Because that, I believe, was the only thing that held the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back, was that how many sacks they ultimately gave up. I believe they finished like close to the bottom with sacks allowed, or at the top of allowing sacks, which isn't good either way. So hopefully this new offensive line that they try to rebuild a little bit is going to be able to help Baker Mayfield continue to help that offense get better this upcoming year, and also help out with Rachaad White getting the ball, giving that time for Baker to get the ball to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, one of their good dynamic duos in the league, or Rachaad White, giving him a chance to just get in the open field and let people miss. But they need that chance, and having a little bit of a fixed-up offensive line is definitely going to help out a lot, especially with the versatile rookie that's coming in. He can play all over the line. That's going to be very helpful as well. Last thing I'm looking forward to seeing from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is really to see if they can go back-to-back. I think they can. I think that, yes, I think the script has flipped. I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to be the biggest threat. I think the Panthers are still a long way from actually being contenders in the division. I think that Bryce Young needs a little bit more development to make sure, the Carolina Panthers are going to be good. I know they kind of added some more weapons to help Bryce Young, but I don't think it's enough. The Saints, there's just all kinds of question marks happening over there and kind of seeing what's going to go on with them. But, is Derek Carr going to be good? Is Alvin Kamara going to look like Alvin Kamara, or is he going to not? Or is he just not going to be that great? How is that defense going to hold? And then you kind of go to Atlanta, which I think is going to be the sleeper in this year if they make the wild card or they win the division, which I still think the Buccaneers can win the division. because Kirk Cousins is older. I know everybody's raving that they have a competent quarterback, but keep in mind, Kirk Cousins is older. He's a lot older. So we'll have to see what's going to happen with Atlanta. I know they have a pretty interesting season coming up. So, but they do have the weapons. I think they're going to be the closest to compete with the Buccaneers, but I am looking forward to seeing if they can go back to back, because even though the NFC South did get stronger, I still don't think it's the toughest division in the NFC. I still believe it's going to be the NFC West and the NFC East are going to be the toughest, and then a little bit of the North, but I think the Lions are going to run away with that anyways. So I still think the NFC South, it's not very far, but I still think they're one of the weaker ones by default. They're one of the weaker divisions. So I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and who they added on offense and who they brought back for defense is going to help out a lot and kind of propel that team to at least be better. And maybe they can go back to back and get back into the playoffs and kind of show that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers really do mean business, and the NFL world should take them serious. But alrighty, everybody, that's going to wrap things up on this episode of the Cowboys Fan versus the World podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social medias at Cowboys Fan versus the World, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If I would be on MySpace, I would, but it doesn't exist. Now, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe and notifications if you want to hear more episodes coming up. This episode will be up live on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Just give me some time on that. I did fix the situation with that, like I told you guys earlier. So that got fixed. So I'm very excited to kind of get that up a little bit more quickly. If you're more of a listener on the podcast, I know a lot of you like to listen to it when you're away, can't access YouTube. So just give me a little bit of time for me to upload everything. I got to upload it to YouTube first, kind of make sure everything's good. But other than that, guys, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.